I'm Charlotte Faber, a UK educational consultant working with Specialist Tutoring Company and Yinjie Law Shanghai, advising parents on all elements of UK school entry. Today we'll talk about computerised testing, specifically CAT, CEM and ISEB, which are terms you may have heard. I'll break down what they all mean and what they consist of and how best to prepare for them. So ISEB is probably the most famous one you'll have heard of. It refers to a test that is taken as the first stage of entry to 13 plus schools such as Eton and Harrow, and it happens in year 6, the autumn term, in a quite specific testing window. It is the first stage of assessment for schools that your child may be looking at for 13 plus, and one must do well enough in the ISEB pre-test in order to then be invited for interview and then to sit the school's own 13 plus exam, often in year 8. So that might be common entrance, or it might be a specific exam that a school uses of its own. The pre-test is one test that one can sit for any schools that use it. It consists of reasoning, maths and English. There's no creative element and it's quite language based. It is sat in a centralised place, often the prep school, if a prep school is able to administer it, or an international school. The administration instructions are fairly clear, but it must be administered by somebody at the school. Often it can be done at an embassy or an approved examination base, for example, internationally. And the results are all centralised, marked by computer, and can be accessed by any of the schools, so it only needs to be sat once. I'll talk a little bit about how to prepare for that in a minute. The other test that you may have heard of refers more to girls and 11 plus entry for some schools, such as Wycombe Abbey, for example, St Paul's Girls' School. At 11, they may use another computerised based test called the CEM test, which is not dissimilar to ISEB. It's just a different exam board. ISEB refers to the Independent Schools Examination Board. The CEM test is set by Durham University, and it's a very similar test. The CEM test is adaptive, which means it gets harder as it goes on, and a child would sit it again at an approved centre or at the school itself, so Wycombe Abbey, for example, St Paul's Girls. And often if children come out and say, oh, that was really difficult, that's a good thing, because it means it's got harder because they're doing well. You may have heard of CAT testing, and that's not something that you need to worry about, would probably come across. That is a cognitive ability test that is set in UK-based prep schools and used as a method of tracking and seeing how well children are doing. It's reported on to schools at 11 plus or 13 plus, so the head is asked for a child's CAT results previously. But if your school is international and doesn't do CAT testing, then that's absolutely fine. It's not something that you as a parent need to be doing or worrying about, and it's just a useful tool of gathering useful way of gathering some data in a school. So how best to prepare for those ISEB and CEM tests? Well, really, in my view, using both a mixture of paper and online methods is helpful, little and often at home. The reason the schools use those tests is because they feel that they're not tutorable for necessarily, but I think anything is improvable with enough practice. So using both paper-based, there's lots of workbooks you can get hold of, and some online resources that you can sign up to. In my view, a fairly new kid on the block, but probably the best one to subscribe to is Atom Learning, and they are specifically written to help children prepare for those tests. We would obviously be able to help you with specific schools' entrance procedures and specific ways to prepare for those, but that is a whistle-stop tour through ISEB and CEM. 7 plus and 8 plus examinations or assessments, they don't routinely use these computerised tests, so they don't form part of the conversation. Some schools this year have changed their procedures at 11 plus, but again, that would be part of a conversation that we could have in more detail.